everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome back. It's good to see everyone. Just ready to get started. Before we get started, maybe let's everyone introduce themselves so that we remember who everyone is, because we have a guest presenter here tonight. Most of you probably know her, but let's give her a chance to see who's in the room with us tonight. And so I'm Judy Wilkerson. I have the honor of being chair of the committee, and I hail from Florida Gulf Coast University, where I teach research, assessment, evaluation, measurement, that kind of thing. And our vice chair.
Hi, I'm Marissa Beyer, and I'm vice president, and I come from Veterans Park. Before that, I was at East. Before that, I was at Varsity. Before that, I was at Coral Springs High in Broward.
She's got a lot of board before that.
Yeah.
Christina?
Okay, short and simple. I'm Christina Stewart. I am not teaching currently. I do have my elementary education degree, but right now I'm in law enforcement. That's it.
Stephanie?
Stephanie Snyder. I was a teacher administrator for 32 years in a New York district, and now I'm here. Retired.
Wonderful, thank you.
Donna Dunker, retired teacher. That's not teacher.
Larry Tina, I'm a retired speech pathologist, teacher, administrator, fan of the district.
Terrific, thank you.
Betsy Vaughn, I am a retired teacher as well, 38 years, and currently Board of Education, District 6, and I'm liaison.
Thank you. Okay.
Erica Ruella. I am an American Sign Language and Special Ed and Spanish teacher, previously intervention support specialist, and I'm at Marion High School now.
Thank you.
Edwin Rivera, Director of the ESOL Department for the School District of Lee County.
April?
April Catron, Magnet Lead Teacher at Prince Marsh Middle School.
And Helen, we can't miss you in the back, just this
And I'm Helen Hernandez, I'm the secretary, the recording secretary for tonight, secretary for curriculum service.
Thank you, and Lori.
I'm Lori Houchin, and I'm middle school director.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Spiro. I'm the Chief Academic Officer, but really Helen is the one that makes everything happen in curriculum and instruction, so
And last but not least.
Candace Oliveto, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, high school.
Terrific. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, let's see if we can take a look at the agenda and see if we're okay with the agenda. Everybody take a look at it, please. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, terrific, thank you. And how about the minutes? Let's take a look at the minutes. Motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Nicole. Second?
A second.
All right, who said second? Erica? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, opposed? Well, we're zipping right along here. This is terrific. Okay, and our statement, a mission statement and purpose of the committee. I'll ask everybody to read that at the top of our agenda, please. We all good there? Do we have any public here to comment? I think we do. All right. Ms. Vaughn.
Okay, two things, just really briefly. I think I probably mentioned to you that one of the things on our legislative agenda for Lee County School District was getting some funding for comprehensive health education. And the good news on this is Representative Byron Donalds. He's in Collier County, but we count him as part of the local legislation delegation. Must be a long day. Anyway, he has filed a comprehensive health plan appropriation for us, and it's House Bill 2849. And we do have lobbyists here in the district that help us out with legislative agendas. And latest word on that is that they are going to be working with Representative Byron Donald's office in placing the bill on the pre-K to 12 appropriations subcommittee agenda. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is, in the past, the school board liaisons around this time, actually after the organizational meeting, which takes place tomorrow when we get new board chair and vice chair. Normally, we all rotate, but we decided that it made little sense to rotate in November when we're having new people come aboard, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll be seeing my face here, for better or for worse, through June. Actually, we meet till the end of May, but we will do our change around and switch out to different committees in June. So anyway.
We're delighted to have you stay with us.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm happy to. You know, once you start something, it's like, okay, now I'm moving, like, you know, Mad Hatter's Tea Party. Okay, move on next. And you don't really get to see anything follow through to fruition. So I'm glad that we made that decision.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Doing okay? All righty, so foreign language textbook adoption. Candace, you had some things you wanted to say to us?
Yeah, sure do. Karen Baber was going to present today. She's unfortunately ill, but she is our coordinator for instructional material and technology. So she facilitates this process, and I am just gonna rotate this so we record it. So what we're looking for from you guys tonight is actually a recommendation to the board for the textbook materials we're looking for both Spanish and French. So the courses we are adopting are French 1 for middle school, French 1 through 4 at high school, Spanish 1 for middle school, and then Spanish 1 through 4 for high school. So that's what we're bringing before you this evening. And just to bring some of you up to speed with the process on how it works and what we look for, is these are the 6 content areas that the teachers are reviewing it for. So the committee is actually made up of teachers. So we try to pull a teacher from every single school. We look for administrators to recommend a teacher to be part of the committee. We take community volunteers. We did have one community member who started with us this year. However, they were unable to finish the process. And we also have students. So we did have one student as part of the committee this year. It was actually a middle school student, and what all of the teachers said in there was it was amazing because she really helped to follow this rubric and brought a group of adults back together every once in a while when the group started to swirl this way. She was like, but wait, the rubric says, and it was just, we all got a good chuckle in French over that based upon her input there. So this is the timeline that we've gone through this year. We had our publisher showcase on September 23rd, and that was open to everyone. It was put out that evening. We did have approximately 100 participants show up that night. The committee training took place on October 8th. So that's where we brought in all of the teachers and we walked through them the process. We went over the rubric and made sure they were comfortable with what they were going to be evaluating the textbooks for. And then the next 2 dates you see on there, those are our big dates. So publishers came in on October 21st and they gave a presentation with Q&A. And then the afternoon of the 21st and all day on the 22nd, the teams deliberated. And they went through the process of reaching consensus on what textbook companies they would like to bring forth to this committee tonight to hopefully have you guys bring forth to our board. So those presentations, the way it works is the textbook publishers come in, they had 35 minutes for a presentation. The committee members write down their notes while they're presenting, that way not to interrupt with the presentation, and at the end, then there's 10 minutes for Q&A. If all the questions aren't answered in those 10 minutes, they're in a holding room. So they go over there and they can answer the questions on the note cards, and then we bring them back to them for deliberation. Technology's frozen. Can't see this screen, but it tells you what the publishers are. So after the presentation takes place, we go into what's called the deliberation process. And in the deliberation, the teachers are looking for those pieces of information they said were important to them during what we do, the interest-based process. So we follow the same process that we utilize in interest-based bargaining. And what that means is that we bring teams of teachers, or like this room, what we're going to do today, is we bring you guys to consensus. And that means we don't bring to a vote, but instead we look for the committee to make one unanimous recommendation. And we do that through the use of a thumbs up of, yes, that was my first choice. I am so happy with it. I'm jumping up and down, to a sideways of, that wasn't my first choice, but I'm going to live with it. I'm going to walk out that door and believe in the process that we went through today because my voice was heard, my communication took place, and I'm gonna fully support this. Or a thumbs down. Anytime there's a thumbs down around the content, we stop and we have deep conversations around it. And we do multiple rounds of that. So the conversation is all driven by the teachers, and in this case it was teachers and one student, because it's their textbook adoption process, and that's what's really large in it. So Evelyn, actually overseeing world languages, got to participate in textbook adoption, as did myself and Lori. However, we participate as neutral parties. So we don't come in, we don't evaluate the textbooks, we try not to look prior to, but instead we're there as facilitators. So Evelyn and Nadine, who is their content area, they help to guide the conversations back to, okay, in content we said it was really important that it's aligned to standards. Have you taken the two textbook companies and really looked at one lesson and compared those lessons side by side, and does it align to our standards? You said that it was important that there was student engagement. Looking at that same lesson, is there student engagement? So we keep having these conversations until we get to the point where somebody, maybe April, says, I would like to make a recommendation. And the recommendation has to come from our committee members. So you can see the first round was all based upon presentation. So we call it our gut check. And are there any publishers that can be eliminated after that? The second round is only based upon the priorities that were set by the teacher. And then the third round is the full rubric. So there are all 6 sections, and each of the sections has about 8 to 10 indicators that they're looking for. The committee then provides their top 2 choices, and we bring those forth. So for Spanish, these were the 6 publishers that presented. And Vista is the publishing company that the committee is recommending. I'm going to give you a moment to read over the bullets. What you're seeing there are the reasons why the committee came to this choice. For French, we only had 4 publishers that bid. So these are the 4 publishers that gave presentations to the French committee. And out of those 4, this is the company that the French committee selected. And again, these are their reasons behind it. now at your tables, I'd like you guys to have a 2-minute conversation about any questions, concerns, or things you need to know more about for the process before I ask this group to come to consensus to see if we can make a recommendation.
What is the recommendation that you're trying to get, Candace?
The recommendation is that this committee supports Spanish having Vista learning. So we need to bring before the board, once we have our January date set in the month of January or February, we need to bring before the board a recommendation to adopt Vista learning for Spanish middle school, Spanish 1 through 4 for our high schools. And we're looking to go forth with HMH being our textbook publisher for French 1 and French 1 through 4. Once we have the board's approval on those pieces, then we can begin negotiations with the textbook companies so we can move forward. So these can be our 2 publishers for implementation next year.
So you're endorsing the process that the committee went through. We did ask for members to serve on this, but I don't believe we had anyone from curricular.
Was there an email? Because I would have loved
Yeah,
to
we
have
didn't.
Just because I went that day that we had our meeting, remember I came up with the foods.
So the first one happened after, remember, our first meeting was the night of publisher
The 29th.
showcase. So if we look back at the timeline, and I was just gonna open up my personal computer. So everything gets published to the web. So there was put out there for almost a 3-week period to take applications for committees to apply. So we did have 1 community member apply to be part of it. And we do take, as long as it's local and we can verify credentials, we take community members. So it was an open process. It's on the web if you would like the exact dates, I can look for them. But our 1 community member who came the night of October 8th, he did not come back on October 21st. So you have to be present on October 8th, 21st, and 22nd to be a part of the committee.
Let me just toss out a thought. I don't know a whole lot about these textbooks, nor do I know a whole lot about the district's curriculum. I do know a little bit about French and Spanish, but that's neither here nor there. I think what I would be comfortable doing is saying that in general, this looks like a credible process. But for me to actually say Vista is the right textbook for this district would be very difficult for me to say. And for me, now other folks in the room might be comfortable in doing that. So I'd like us to have that kind of a conversation first about what is a comfortable recommendation for this group to make.
So your recommendation is you're supporting us moving forward with the process to bring forth those 2 textbook companies to the board. So you're not really voting on the publishers, you're recommending based upon the process, that you agree in the process, how we got down to these 2 textbook publishers to move forward with them. So Mr. Weaver, last year, those of you who were on the committee last year, Mr. Weaver was the community member and he represented CLAC. So he went through the process to learn about the process, so you had somebody on the committee who could speak to it. April, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna put you out there for a second. April has also been through textbook adoption, both as a teacher and as a committee member previously. So she would be another one that can speak to the process as well as you're discussing at your tables. So at your tables, if you take those 2 minutes, do you have questions on the process that would stop this committee from moving forward with our recommendation to the board? Because when we bring it forward, we say the curriculum advisory supports the process that we landed with these 2 publishers for purchasing for next year.
Let's have a general discussion before we have
Sure
any
thing.
discussions, because I see some furrowed brows.
We support the process, but not the publisher, that has nothing to do with.
I'm not sure the process is clear, like, you put a list of, on the Vista, you put a list of reasons, I would imagine, that you deliberated, like one said integrated technology. And I happen to be very interested in technology. I wanna know what that means. Then on the second one, which was the Mifflin book.
Sure, so
You
these
put
are the
down-
6 categories.
You put down, something about computer technology, and that was it, or use of computer technology. Those things are important, so I'd like to know what they mean before I say anything, yes about it. I'm a little bit confused, but I wasn't here the last time, so I'll bed off.
And it was interesting when the 2 teachers at my school that were part of the committee, when I went to that presentation, the first initial presentation, I was thrilled with some of the presentations, but the one presentation that right off the bat was one that I would never have gone for, was the one that they ended up choosing. And I know I heard that one of the students made a comment about they don't want so much technology, and I understand the students' perspective, but if we're moving forward in a technology integration, technology type of engagement, if you follow the rubric for this, it's kind of like the Bloom's taxonomy, but for technology integration, and a lot of teachers just kind of upload a PDF and think it's technology, and that's not it. And this publisher that I was suggesting to my department, in my opinion, was better. Vista didn't even have technology presented at their tape. They had a VHS tape. So in my opinion, a VHS tape is all they had displayed. The other ones had a lot of tech integration. They had a good use of both tech integration and still paper applicable stuff to present to students. And in my opinion, Vista was just one that had the books on the table and a VHS tape to present.
Other
But
comments?
Erica, you're
And I
talking
teach
about, and you're talking about the textbook.
The
She's
publisher,
talking
the
about the
publisher.
process.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I said we're
And that's
agreeing
why
on
I'm
the process.
confused.
So we're agreeing on the process, not the publisher.
But I think what Erica is saying is that she has some concerns about the process. Okay.
So Dr. Wilkerson, if I can step back then just one further, so that way I dive in further to the 6 categories, because it'll give you more about the process.
Can we continue this conversation? So Ms.
Sure.
Vaughn had her hand up, so I'd like to recognize
Sure.
her.
Yeah, my question is, what does the process look like in each individual school, in all the middle schools? Did every high school and middle school teacher who teaches world language, Spanish and French, have a chance to, because I was on lots of adoption committees in Texas, it's like Florida, the big adoption thing. And we always brought it first to our schools and all of the teachers. So that's my big question. What did it look like in the schools? And did every single school have a member to vote?
I can speak to
in the
that.
end? All right.
Okay, yes, actually, the schools, many of them receive a package, like the same kind of set that they were gonna evaluate the day of the deliberation. And they also receive everything digitally. So the instructions that they received were that to please go ahead and then work with your department. Every teacher that teaches like either Spanish or French, and then have them all go through the materials, have a conversation, and then have the person that represents the school bring those thoughts back to the committee. So everybody had equal chances to look at everything, express their ideas, their thoughts, bring their questions back to the committee, and then remember that each school had a representative. So that person was the voice for that school.
So every school had a vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, they did.
that's very important to me, that every school had votes,
Yes.
an equal vote.
I have a question for you, Ms. Vaughn, if I may, please.
Mhm.
We're being asked to make a recommendation to the board. Can you share with us why that is important and of what use that is to the board and why we're actually trying to do this?
Well, the board is the governance team, and we put our faith in the decisions that the staff makes. And I guess what we need to reassure the board of at this point is that it was a fair process, which is why I asked the question, did every school? And frankly, my feeling is it's up to the teachers. It's not up to Dr. Spiro, because he's not in there teaching Spanish 2. It's up to whoever is teaching Spanish 2 to say, yeah, this is a great series, there's a good foundation for my kiddos from Spanish 1 and that. So I put my faith strongly in the teachers, but I guess what we're being asked to do is to ensure that the process was fair and equal, when it really helps me a lot to have that question answered. Did every single school have a vote in it?
So will it be helpful to the board to have an endorsement from this group when we're not clear how much this group really knows?
Understands the process.
Right. Is
Well,
that
and
something?
that's what, before this group endorses, I would say the group, and see, I don't vote on this, it's all of you. Even though I had that question, which I felt was really, really important. So it's up to y'all to, as I said, I put my faith in the teachers. It's up to you to decide if the teachers all had an equal vote and it was a long enough process or whatever. Does that sound right?
Yep, I was gonna pull up for you the rubric that might help with the process. So the same time the committee applications open and are open for that 3-week process, an email goes out to every administrator for every middle school and high school, because those were the only courses. So as you heard Evelyn say, we get a member from each one of the schools for the different courses, and we take those. And this is when they come in on October 8th to receive the training. They receive training on content, instruction, format, teacher support, assessment, and digital materials. And what we go through with them is this rubric here. So this is our full rubric. So there's those 6 major headings, and then here in content, you're going to notice content is broken down to 8 sections.
And who completes this rubric?
So the teachers on the committee, as well as any community member that would have sat on that committee, and the student is also part of it.
Okay, so it's the
So-
teachers on the committee,
Yeah.
but what about the teachers in the schools?
So they get this rubric on October 8th, and they had approximately 2 weeks to go back to their schools and talk with their departments and review with the materials that were sent to the schools. Publishers are not required to send materials, they are required to provide electronic access. We post all of that to the web, the materials are still open. We send out emails to all of the committee members with the electronic access so they have it prior to, as well as all teachers across the district have access to it. So when they go back to their schools, they can collect the feedback in any manner they would like from their departments. There is no set in stone way they have to collect it.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I think this may be getting at what this group is saying. How confident are you that all of the teachers in the schools that teach using these materials had input into the completion of these rubrics?
One of the first things we train our community members on, the committee members, when they come in on October 8th, is that they are there representing their school and their school's voice. They are not there as an individual member. So it's their role to go back, and they're speaking not on just behalf of the teachers at that building, but also the students of that building. So some schools take it back as far as they preview some of those materials with their students. So the opportunity is there for all. As soon as we engage in textbook adoption in early August, it's open to all to do independently. And then once we do October 8th, it's open to that person to go back to their schools.
So let me go back to the question I just asked. How confident are you that all the teachers had the input? I heard you say you trained, but we all know sometimes we train and people don't do what they're trained to do. Because I'm hearing some issues in this room that maybe all teachers didn't have that kind of input. And that's what's causing me to stop. And so what I want to make sure doesn't happen in this room is that we serve as a rubber stamp if we're not comfortable doing that.
So what we
I
could
mean, there
do,
has to be a purpose to what we're doing,
we
otherwise
could
we're wasting
table,
our time.
because we don't have January's meeting set, we could table and ask a couple of our committee members to come and share how they shared at their schools. Because one of the things I can share with this group is we had several teachers say to us, this slide that has the bullets on it is extremely important because the publisher I walked in with today thinking we were going to adopt is not the publisher I'm walking out the door supporting here. And it's through the process that mind shift changes, because they got to hear a presentation that necessarily doesn't get shown when you're just looking at digital tools. They got to ask multiple questions. We get to continue to follow up with the publishers, and they have a rubric in which they're evaluating. And what we do is you don't sit with the same team. So if this is my team for the very first look at presentations, we have a conversation, but then we number off 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all the ones. Now you get up and go, and you have a new conversation. And where is that conversation? Where do we come to consensus? So they go through 4 rounds of those type of meeting together before we even get down to one publisher. And when they're having those conversations, the other part I wanted to show you is with the rubrics, it's done in a blind manner of teams. So our very first look is done on chart paper, and each individual committee member, before they have any type of conversation, comes up and ranks the publishers without having conversation. And those are recorded. So it's their individual based upon presentations and what their school has shared with them. That's that first look. The second look is we look for our priority rubrics. So we take this full rubric, but the committee on the October the 8th narrowed this down and said of these 9 indicators, these are our top 3. And the teachers decide, and the student, and the parent who are there, they decide what those 3 are that they're going to evaluate for. So then we go through the textbooks and we only look for the priorities. And we look at the priorities in content, the priorities in assessment, the priorities in each one of those 6 major categories. And then we post the scores for them. And we look at the total, and then they narrow it down again. So the committee is narrowing it down. And then we do one final look with the full rubric, which are all 6 areas with each one of the indicators here.
Okay, I hear the detail, but let's kind of cut to the quick so that we can get to the presentation that we need to get to today. The comment that I heard from Ms. Vaughn is that she's hoping to hear that all of the teachers had input in this. So that's one thing that I would like you to provide information on at our next meeting. The manner in which you have audited this process to make sure that all teachers had input into it. What is your audit process, and how can you assure us so that we can assure the board that the teachers had sufficient input? Great committee, it's what it sounds like to me, but I want to hear how we know that that committee did their homework. Larry.
I had a question. I think it was mentioned, I'm sorry, her name is
Erica.
Erica. Did you mention that it was oriented towards digital and that carried weight, heavy weight in terms of selection? I'm only asking this
Yeah,
because
like they were turned off by the amount, from what, because was that rubric shared with the members of the committee that were supposed to bring it back to the school?
Yes.
Because I never saw that rubric in my department.
see, that's what I was gonna ask is a
And
lot
that's
of
why
ways.
I'm writing this down.
I've been on textbook selection committees, and if you use a rubric, once you fill in the rubric decides what you're gonna buy.
Yeah.
So who had input into the rubric? I mean, that's part of what I think is important was if the rubric was what our teachers and people agree is that those are the most important elements to look at, that's great. And I'm all for it. So, and I'm not saying that it didn't. I'm just saying that lots of times one of the most important things in this whole decision is what's the rubric?
Okay, so you want to know how the rubric was validated?
Yeah, well, or not just validated,
I agree with
but
that.
were the teachers happy with the rubric? That they feel that the rubric reflected what they felt was important?
Okay.
Because that's, otherwise you can't get to, if it isn't on the rubric, the teachers don't have a way to get to it. You see what I'm saying? So all I'm asking is, you know, were the teachers happy with the rubric? Did they say, yeah, this is what we really want? And if they did, they voted for it, you got a good procedure.
Okay, and then other questions that this committee would like Candace to work on for next time?
Not a question, I just want to make a statement. The process from the different times I've served, and I've served on math, social studies, and science at different levels, elementary and middle, is a very thorough process. Whether it got back to you at your school, the time and the effort they put into it, and once you're there, the training that you have to go through, and then the different levels, it is very thorough. So, should have it come back to you? Absolutely. If that's the department you teach in, you should have been exposed to it, worked with the rubric, looked at the different publishers, because I know in past experiences with different subject areas, that's exactly what we did do. And some of us even went to the point that I said, okay, here's the rubric, fill it out, and then I take it back when I go that day and say, this is what my school, this is what my team feels is the best recommendation. And then I take it, but I still listen, because part of being on that committee is having an open mind and listening to what the publishers and everything that day have to say as well. And then taking that back and then making an informed decision from that. So the process itself, I think, is great. It's just whether or not it came back.
Is there consistency at each school, at the school level, is there consistency? Because it sounds like where she is, fell through the cracks, but other schools, 10 other schools may have done it exactly right. A few schools may not have, so the process that they all went through sounds phenomenal.
But before that, down at the grassroots level, I think is
Where the question might be.
Right, which is why school principals are always encouraged to select team members to serve on those committees that really know how to bring the voice back to their school, to make sure they get input, so that they can go back and be part of the process, which is why that information is shared with principals first.
Is there accountability, like if there's 7 world language teachers at a school, that you got 7 input from 7 of them back? Is there anybody checking that? And I know you can't, but is there anybody, the principals, would it be them,
Right, it would be
sure?
right, to make sure that the voices are being heard. I'm not sure if there's a process for that specifically where they come back each time and say, how many team members did you ask and get input on? The assumption is you are a professional, you've been asked or you volunteered to be part of this.
Right.
And now you're coming to represent your school so that they have a voice at the table. So you avoid literally what Erica's going through.
Yeah.
Is the whole reason why you're trying to avoid that.
Because
So that,
once you get to this is phenomenal, this is
they
fabulous.
spend an enormous amount of time.
It's a lot of work.
Yes.
So every school is represented on the committee, right?
Every
Okay.
school is represented, absolutely.
So what you perhaps could do, how many members are there in the committee?
So we had all 14 high schools. We only had the middle schools in which offer that Spanish or French course. So not knowing off the top of my head, I need to get that count for you.
All right, so maybe you could send a quick email to the members of your committee asking them what process they used to ensure that all the teachers in the school had input.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if I may just answer
Sure.
Dr. Tian's question. So the rubric itself is started internally in the department which it resides. So it's based upon research best practices of here are the pieces that we're evaluating. It is mirrored off of the state's process. But then at the teacher level, they isolate out which ones are their priorities. So when we go through the interest-based training, we ask them, what are your interests? What are your needs? And we make sure that's what drives those initial looks. So that's how it's designed.
I only brought it up because I thought there was a concern about the way on digital, so I
Yes.
thought it was that, how was that set up, so thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Anything
Thank
else?
Candace, she's stepping in for Karen today.
Anything else that we want to ask Candace and Karen, is it to let us know next time? We good? All right, sorry about that.
You're good. Thank you. Evelyn, Jack.
All right. Sorry, that was more difficult than we anticipated.
You're
It's all
good.
good. Wait till you see Karen
Miss
tomorrow.
Baber's watching tonight, she owes you dinner.
I used to do a lot of consulting with the DOE, and I knew Stephanie Webb specifically from that. And the woman that I used to work with there, she looked at me one time and she said, Judy, never ask a question until you're prepared for the answer. Okay, so moving right along. I am so delighted to introduce, most of you probably already know, Evelyn Rivera, soon to be Dr. Rivera.
I'm due for December 4th.
I've known Evelyn for years, so I was just really delighted when I found out that she was going to be our presenter for this evening, talking about ELL and what we can do to move forward. And we had an opportunity to meet, and I'm going to turn it over to Evelyn, and she's going to do this presentation any way she wants.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here to have this conversation about ELLs. And we appreciate the opportunity for you to get involved and to your willingness to support our efforts in everything that we can. So I'm going to start my presentation by showing some data. I collected some data in the month of March for you, so you can see exactly how the ELS population has grown throughout the years. And also I'm going to then move forward into what the department is doing to support the ELLs. And then we have an activity for you to do after I finish with my presentation, all right? And the reason why I'm here, so you guys know, is because of Dr. Tien. Back in the days, he brought me here from the classroom. So I appreciate the opportunity, Dr. Tien.
We appreciate that too, Dr.
Dr. Spiro now, who is also fantastic to work with and for.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving to the slideshow. If you have any questions throughout my presentation, please stop me and ask the questions because you can forget. And also you have the PowerPoint so you can write notes. Okay, first of all, as you can see, I'm going to start with the number of ELLs in the district. As you can see, I started from 2014 and 15 collecting the data. And then, so you can see how that bar graph moves up from 2014-15 to we only have 8,236 ELLs. You can see that the following year, how again that group started to then grow, continue all the way, and we saw the big jump from 2018 to 2018 and 19. See that from 10,354, now there are 12,010 ELLs. And then this year, 2019-20, we have 12,062, but don't forget that this is only a few months into the school year that I collected this data. So this number is going to even increase even more. All right, with the ELLs, don't forget that yes, we administer a test to make them eligible or ineligible for ESOL services. So that test tells us the level of language proficiency that the students are at. So being monolingual is something that we look very carefully because those students bring with them very low skills in English. Some of them come from countries like Puerto Rico, and that they come with some English because they take English every day, but there's many of them, most of them, have never been exposed to English, so they come with very limited English proficiency. And that imagine sitting in a class, if I were to talk to you right now, I switch to español, y les hablo a ustedes una lección completamente de ciencia en español, y empiezo a usar diferentes términos para que ustedes me entiendan. ¿Cuántos de ustedes me entienden?
Do you
How many of you
understand?
understood what I
How
said?
many of you just understood what I said?
This is a teacher, this is how an ELL feels in an all English classroom. If I started using gestures, for example, I'm going to do the same thing. ¿Cuántos de ustedes me están entendiendo? ¿Me están escuchando ustedes lo que estoy hablando? ¿Lo que estoy hablando? ¿Entienden? Esto es una caja. Esto es una caja llena de marcadores. Marcadores para ustedes, ¿ok? Para que ustedes escriban. When I start doing all that, I'm making my lesson comprehensible by using strategies that actually are making everything more understandable. But imagine doing that in a science class. There's things that you can do, so hands-on experiments. You can also use visuals, pictures, video clips, and all different good resources. But then we need to make sure that the teachers know how to employ those strategies and first of all identify what these practices look like, all right? So these monolingual ELLs get a chance to be successful in an all-English classroom. As you can see here also, I put the bars side by side. the number of students that were tested in that year, and then how many of them tested monolingual. I also included the percentage. So you can see how the percentage of monolinguals have also grown through the years. Look at 2017-18.
A lot.
I went up to 87% of ELS tested in that year were tested monolingual. They became both monolingual with that label. Very low proficiency in English. And then went a little bit down in 2019, and I would imagine that was when there was Hurricane Maria, that many students came from Puerto Rico, and many of them, as I said earlier, they are exposed to English. But then this year, so far, in the few months of the school year, 46% of the ELLs tested monolingual. Right? That is not only the problem. There's also a bigger problem that we have. And that problem is students with academic gaps. Not every ELL is the same. Some of them come to us on grade level with good skills that they can transfer to the new language. But many of them are coming to us with interrupted schooling, with big gaps. The gaps are so huge that sometimes we had students that had never been to school before. And because of their age, they're placed in the grade appropriate 8th grade. But then here you have the teacher with a group of students who are in grade level, and then in the same class, they have Lori, who actually never been to school before. So how can the teacher, what can the teacher do to meet the needs of Jeff and Lori, who are both in different language proficiency? Different grade level, he's fantastic, he can move along. And then here is Lori that has interrupted school and she has a big gap to fill before she can actually move on to be on grade level. That's a big challenge. So those situations reserve more different settings. Like we have one in the international centers at Dunbar High School, Fort Myers High School, and also Eastern County High School. It's a special location for those kids to be in a sheltered English developmental classes to then boost their English acquisition and also put them again, do interventions to put them again on grade level. They have many math needs. They have to start, for example, they're adding and subtracting. That's what they need, that's what they're gonna get. And then they take the regular on grade level classes to the support of ESOL professionals and also the teachers with the ESOL strategies. Again, you can see how 2016-17, we started collecting this data about interrupted schooling. There were 140 kids with interrupted schooling that are enrolling in our schools. The next year, it double, even triple the following year. And this year, there's 655 ELLs at this time in November with interrupted schooling. I took a step further. I even analyzed the gap. Let me see how big is the gap. How many students have only 1 or 2 years of academic gap? Because that might be a little bit better or easier to deal with than when you have students with 7 to 11 years of academic gap. Okay? So you can see that in 2016, you can see that the majority of the kids will have only 1 or 2 years of academic gap. All right? Then in 2000, this year, 121 students have between 3 and 4 years of academic gap. Imagine if that gap is in elementary school, right? And for example, I also have some numbers. These gaps this year, 655 students with academic gaps, let me tell you how they are, in what schools do they go. For example, elementary schools, out of those 655, 215 go to elementary grade schools. 137 are in our middle schools, and 299 are in our high schools. In high school, they have less time to catch up because they need to meet graduation requirements, and they also have less time. So if they come, for example, in a sophomore, they have only 2 more years or 3 more years to meet all the requirements, pass the EOCs, and also pass the statewide assessments in order to graduate. Out of those 299 that are in high schools, 101 are at Dunbar High School. Then 26 are at Eastern County High School, and 55 are at South Fort Myers High School. All right? Imagine that the challenge is even greater at the high school level. And as I said earlier, the content as they progress in grade levels is more complex, requires some more complex thinking, more complex language to express themselves and to participate actively in the classroom conversation. So this is a big challenge that we have ahead of us. Any questions so far? Next one. I'm sorry, I went too far. Previous.
I have a question.
Achievement data.
How do we interact with the parents of these students? And I would imagine that most of the homes are of their language.
Yes.
Do we help the parents in any way with English language skills?
Okay, we do have meetings by zones. We have already had 4 meetings this year in the few months of school. And one of the purposes of those meetings is to make sure that the parents understand that there are resources available to them to learn English. We take with us information from the adult education classes. We tell them this is where you can go, these are the times, the days, all right? Also, something very nice that one school is doing that is Manatee Elementary, and we're part of that initiative. They are bringing the parents in during the day, and they're offering the opportunity to be on a program to learn English during weekdays. So this is part of our department, and we are in support of that. And also we provide translators and interpreters during meetings, make sure that there's no language barrier. That's also an obligation, not because we want to, because we are obligated to provide translation. We have in-house a person who is a Haitian Creole speaker. His name is Robert Ju. And Robert Ju works in our department day by day. He goes out to the schools to help students that are monolingual, and provide support, provides interventions. And then also he goes to the schools to participate in IEPs, to translate, and also translate documents for the entire district and also for the individual schools. Thank you. Did I answer your question?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Okay, looking at the achievement data, you can see all these challenges. We know that the consequence is that the achievement of the ELS is not the greatest. So we have another challenge ahead of us. As you can see here, I gathered the data from the last 2 years. In 2018, last year, and the previous year, you can see that it's only 12.7% of ELLs achieve level 3 or higher on the ELA assessment, state assessment. That went up, it's up by 0.7 percentage points, all right? Because the previous year there was only 12%. Continue again with math, again we saw a gain of 1.7 percentage points from 1 year to the next. In science, 5th grade, this is an area that is a big exactly another one that we were looking into, and we're partnering with the curriculum department in doing training for the teachers in the schools, elementary and also middle school and high school, because science is an area that we need to make sure that we are really filling that gap. Science 8th grade, again, they both went down by 1.5 percentage points. This is an area of our concern, as I said, when we're doing already interventions to help out in that area. Biology, surprisingly, went up by almost 3 percentage points, all right? Civics is an area that also went up by 1.4 percentage points, and these are classes that are heavily loaded in language.
Yeah.
So the academic language that the students need is not the same language that they use to socialize. You know, this is the difference between the basic interpersonal skills, that is the BICS, and the CALP, that is used cognitive academic language proficiency. One is the social language that they use to communicate with their friends. I went to the movies, I went to do this, and this is why many teachers then feel like, oh my gosh, I see that Jeff is always talking on the hallways with his friends. And he's doing okay with English. So what is the problem with Jeff? That he's not doing well in my class. You know what happens? That Jeff has the BICS, basic interpersonal social skills. And he's missing the CALP, the cognitive, this is the academic language that he needs to be able to perform the task of the classroom on grade level. That is the language that he needs to be able to participate in arguments in the classroom, to express his opinion, to express complex thoughts. That's the one that he needs to develop. And that's the role of the teacher to develop that specific language. That's the language that he needs to be successful in school. All right? That is based on research.
Evelyn,
Yes.
how long does it take a child typically to move from the LY to, I forget, what's the next one?
Oh, LF.
What?
It's LF, left former.
Okay, LF.
Okay.
So how long typically do they stay in that
I'm gonna give you two
LY?
different answers.
Yeah, okay.
One answer is what research says. Research says that it might take between 5 to 7 years for an ELL to gain proficiency. Close as a native speaker of English. And that, don't forget, this is the language that they need to meet those requirements, to pass all those tests, and they have the same opportunities to do well. Now, in practice, based on the DOE, the goal is to have the ELS exit the ESOL program in 3 years. Okay? 3 years. That goes in, again, what research says. Research says something, and then we do something else. A student is considered long-term ELL after the student has been in the ESOL program for 5 years or more. That's what we need to start doing, a lot of interventions. Some districts are exiting the student because thinking about, well, my gosh, she's not really going to meet exit criteria. But we feel that if the student has not passed the assessment, has not met exit criteria, the student is still in need of ESOL support. Now, luckily, we have something new now that those LF that before, until this month, and prior to that, did not get any accommodations on any assessments. Now the rule changed this year, effective December, and students are going to have the equal opportunity to get accommodations on statewide assessments. With the assessment for LY and LF, we get equal opportunities for accommodations. So that way, and I assume that they're going to, they aggregate the data, achievement data, and those numbers are going to look even better for us. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah?
Evelyn, I'm sorry, can you just explain what exactly is that equal accommodations that they're gonna be providing?
Sure, glad to tell you. There are to use bilingual dictionary that is approved, that is word to word, no definitions, just word to word. They can also have flexible time, means they can take the entire day to complete that test. But if they don't complete that section at the end of the day, it's only on that day. They also can have send it to another room, all right, to make sure that they don't have any distractions. And they also have some limited translation of some words in the instruction that they don't understand. And the parents of ELLs, they have a voice. Every spring and every fall, in August, the school send a letter home, that is by the DOE, telling the parents, okay, we are going to provide your child with accommodations during assessments. You can say yes or no to these accommodations. If the parents return the letter and they say no, the teachers know that we're going to continue providing comprehensible input in the classroom. But when it comes for assessments, the student is not going to receive the same accommodations. Okay? If the letter doesn't come back to us, then we provide all the accommodations allowable. Did I answer your question, Erica?
Yeah, but we've always used the extra time in the dictionaries, but the limited translation, I guess that's what's new?
Limited translation.
And that's provided by the testing, the proctor, who's that limited translation?
We also have a professional who's there assisting inside with you. They cannot use any electronic translators. They have to be also nothing on the computer. We don't want the students to have unfair advantage over other students who don't have accommodations. Right? Yes, ma'am.
What about if you have?
I'm sorry, I think I didn't hear you.
What happens if you have some resistance, like from elementary school, that they have behavioral problems, that they have to work on their intervention for behavior prior to learning the language if they're from, different countries?
Normally, behavior, when a student can be in both services from ESD and from ESOL. ESD always supersedes. And they provide most likely the same accommodation that we would provide. And if there's anything that says in the IEP that the student should receive any kind of accommodations despite of the behavior problem, we provide the accommodation, the school provides the accommodation. Behavior problems, we normally work together with the team from ESC and find common accommodation that we both can actually share and help each other on behalf of the kid. graduation, as I said, there's also, again, English proficiency. This particular percentage comes from the access for ELS 2.0. By law and also by No Child Left Behind and now by ESSA, districts are supposed to test this all ELS for proficiency, make sure that they are gaining in English proficiency. So the scores of these students, if they're proficient, means that they score 4 or higher in the total domain, overall, and then also in the reading domain. They don't count listening or speaking, although the overall includes all the 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So those 2 scores make the student either proficient, that is a level 4 or higher, goes up to 6. This is based on the WIDA standards, and they can do the scriptures. And then anything that is lower than a 3 is considered non-proficient. Could be high intermediate, could be beginner, but they have to score 4 or higher to be considered proficient. Okay? And this, hopefully, this it needs to increase. We're trying so much, but it has to increase. It went down by 2 percentage points. Graduation rate, we don't have the score for the rate for last year because that takes longer. We expect this to be available anytime now. But if I took the last few years from 2018, as you can see, the ELLs in graduation, they're lagging behind their non-ELS peers by sometimes 20-something percentage points. So even though they had been increasing, as you can see, they started with 2014-15 at 47.5% of graduation rate, and then steadily has increased, has never gone down, and it had gone up to 57.5. Still, even though they are increasing graduation rate, it's still not enough. What are we doing for this? We're doing something. We created what is called a graduation task force. And we're going to every high school to make sure that they develop a plan when they're looking at just ELLs, to make sure that they have strategies in implementation to make sure that the ELLs are graduating from our high school. The plan should include what are you doing to make sure that they either pass the FSA ELA, or they can take the SAT or the ACT. So everybody's preparing a plan, and then we have a staff member who's a fabulous person. Her name is Carla Hutt, who we designated her to be the representative from ESOL, along with Shelley Taylor. They go together from school to school, because at one point in June, they had a meeting, they invited the different schools, and only a few schools came. And I had a meeting with those, I said, you know something, guys, this is something what I recommend you to do. We need to go to them. They can come to us, we're gonna go to them. So that's what both of you plan to go to the schools and then have this conversation with the appropriate staff, make sure that they develop the plan and you follow up on the completion of that plan. And then we will be able to provide support in any step in the process that they need support. And so far, they are doing beautifully. The schools are following up. The schools, they know exactly when to sign up the student for ACT, because don't forget, they need to have multiple chances to make sure that they meet that graduation requirement. Because if they don't pass that test, they won't graduate from high school. All right, so any questions about graduation rate?
Is there a particular age that we lose them? Is there a particular age when they say that's enough?
The age, Dr. Spire, because we're high school expert in house. What about the age?
The age that we start losing.
I mean, I couldn't tell you that, what the exact number is district-wide, but normally between around 18 years of age, 17 to 18.
I would have thought it was younger.
Yeah, no, not
That's pretty good. Okay.
Thank you. Moving forward, diversity, again, don't forget we have so far, the academic gaps. We also have diversity in language and diversity in home country. Again, these students come from other countries and they have a time for adjustment to the new environment, the new way of doing things. It's not the same that back in their countries. We have Spanish is the predominant language among ELLs, with 81% of our ELLs speak Spanish as their native language, followed by Haitian Creole, that is by 6% of the students. And then the last one is Portuguese, even though it's low, but it's the highest of the other languages combined, which is 11% is the other one, all the other languages that we have. There's like 87 different languages represented in our ELLs.
Wow.
That's a lot of languages, a lot of languages. So the teacher, that's why it's important that teachers know the ESOL strategy, because we don't speak all those languages. And there's 86 different countries represented among our ELLs in the district. What do we do now? This is the situation, what do we do to make sure that we meet the needs of the ELLs? We have supplementary programs that we funded through Title III, and we developed like a menu based on the needs of the students. For example, in elementary school, we have Imagine Learning, which is a wonderful program for language, and maybe Dr. Tia would enjoy looking into this more. That program is for K through 5, is for monolingual, because don't forget we have limited resources, so we make sure that the students get identified. Once the student is tested with the ESOL proficiency test, that is SELA, the system automatically every night, we have 3 criteria. The student has to be in the country for less than 2 years. The student has to have a certain score to test the monolingual, and the student has to be LY. If the student meets those criteria, automatically the system puts them into the list of Imagine Learning, and the students have immediate access the following day. That test, that program actually has more benchmark assessments at different times during the year, and the teachers use those benchmark assessments, the results, to have conversations with the parents at PLCs and during any kind of ELA committee meeting. We have also Rosetta Stone for the same criteria of the elementary. Then we offer another opportunity for middle school and high schoolers, again with the same. BrainPop ESL for the ones that are not monolingual, but they are ELL, they have BrainPop available to them. This is available in every single school, and it's for K through 12. We also have Fast Forward. That program is a program that's specifically designed, we use it for students with interrupted schooling. We start with the foundation, with a very basic phonemic awareness, phonics, all those wonderful reading skills. And it's a program that is brain-based, which is excellent. It has wonderful results that we have seen it, and teachers love it. Next one, English in a Flash, again, is available for K through 5. Again, students, all the schools that want, for example, to have the program, they can contact, in this case, myself, or Karen Baber, and Karen works on the logistics, and they will provide the funding. And also, we check also on how the students are doing, and also usage. We make sure that these schools, all these resources are useless if the students don't use it. You can have the most wonderful program, but if you use it and use it in a way that the program, for example, recommended, it's like nothing, you're just wasting your money. So we are always checking that schools are using the program. In Rosetta Stone, if the students are not using it in 30 days, we contact the school first of all and say, are you planning to put the student on the program? It could be that the student is having many interventions and doesn't have the time. Although these programs can be used at home. If they don't have internet access, that's another issue. But anyway, we then negotiate with the school and say, if you don't have any plans for this to use these licenses, we don't want to have those licenses sitting there where all the schools can use them. So we continue reshifting the licenses to make sure that they are always in use. That is a very good use of our money. Another one is word dictionaries. As I said, that's one of the accommodations that we provide. But also we tell the schools, do not leave those dictionaries from when it's a test. Because when you give, for example, to you a dictionary that you have never used, there's no regular that has the definition, you're going to be lost. It's like doing nothing for you. So we encourage the schools, the teachers, provide the dictionary, have them there, and I'm glad that anytime I'm going to walk through, because I see in the different classrooms, the dictionary is right on the table. The students are using the dictionary during instruction, right? And then also we have bilingual content dictionaries, glossaries. Those glossaries are approved to be used during civics, during science assessment, statewide assessment, and also during math. So again, encourage them to use them during class time and also use them during the regular statewide assessments. We also have, yes, I'm sorry.
And I'm especially for the students who have the interrupted learning or interrupted schooling.
what placement test are we using now? And I think, didn't you say, Dr. Spiro, after the meeting last time that we were gonna be changing the placement test?
No, that's done.
Oh,
Not changing.
I thought you said that, maybe I misunderstood. So what placement test?
Oh, you mean the WIDA screener?
When the kids come to our school, we give them a placement test, right?
Yes.
That is the CELA. We use the CELA, we're gonna change to the WIDA, so we're
That's what I meant, Ms. Moss. I was trying to remember, yes.
Okay.
We're gonna change to WIDA.
And you know it's been an issue with me, just FYI for the rest of the people, I got to know Evelyn several years ago because I'm on the board of the Haitian American Community
Yes.
Coalition. And we've been huge advocates since it's a distant second, but it is the second most prevalent, the Haitian Creole.
Yes.
Anyway, the issue was initially with the kids coming in with Spanish, I think it used to be through grade 5, there was a Haitian Creole test, and so that was one of our issues as a group. So I'm curious what's happened with that and how the new placement test.
I would like to get deeper into that.
Yeah, we'll get deeper into that, but we
for
have so
now-
many other languages
Sure.
coming.
There are not.
Are they tested in English?
Oh,
How does
yes,
that
don't
go?
forget that the initial test for this kid is English, because we wanna know the English
For
proficiency.
everybody.
Everybody is
All
the
of it's
same.
in English.
Then also, it would be desirable to know how the students are doing in their native language.
Right.
If it is above grade level or on or level. That also helps the school in knowing that if the student, for example, there's a native language assessment, if the student scores either at or above, that student is not to be placed in any intensive reading classes. If the student has the skills in the native language, we just need to give him more time to transfer those skills into the new language.
Okay.
Now, for Haitian Creole, we looked, and one member of our team that she's now in the other coast, Dr. Chris Fonte, she contacted Miami. She was looking because she's also Haitian, and she always had her heart looking for what is there for my people. So she contacted people in Miami, the Miami-Dade, and they found that test, that is the AKA,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
but then it's only, like you said, into 5th grade.
Yeah.
The purpose of that test, again, is to give us ideas to how the student is doing. When in lieu of that, because we don't have that assessment for every language, then we ask the parents. There's a form that the parents fill out and say,
okay.
my student, if he was in the native country, he would be performing either at grade level, on grade level, or below or above. And we use that in the same way and shape that we use the assessment, if the assessment is not available. We do that with every
What do they
single
do
language.
with the math? Are they tested in math or just language? Because I would assume that kids, if you hand them like, I don't know what kind of problems, I was terrible in math, like fractions, multiplying fractions, that it would be the same in all different languages. Of course, instruction afterward is gonna be a problem.
Yes, it is.
But at least you have a starting, do they get a test
We
in
don't have
math
the
skills?
math, no, we only
Not at all.
have, for Spanish speakers, we have the STAR Spanish for reading and the STAR for math. Don't forget, this test is the results of this test are only valid for 1 year. Because, again, we need to think that a student continues to receive instruction in English, those students in their native language, if they're not instructed in their native language, they're going to decrease. English is going to take up, and then their native language might continue to drop because the student is no longer doing, reading, writing in the native language. So that's what we use. We also use those results for gifted recommendations. Student is above grade level. This is we tell the school, look into, for example, into Lori. She tested high on the STAR Spanish, so she might be a good candidate for gifted referral. But we wish that if there was something available in other languages, in Haitian, but there's nothing up there. There's nothing up there. I have emails that I can share with you. I don't know if I shared with you before of the professor from one university of North
We'll
Carolina.
talk later, yeah.
Yeah, we can have that conversation. But thank you so much for, again, bringing that important point to our attention. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it seems that it is a problem though where, because you can't start them at age, especially those kids coming in later that interrupted, as you said.
Well,
But you can't put a 16-year-old in with 6-year-olds.
yes, let me tell you exactly what is happening there.
Okay,
That is a very interesting question.
yeah.
We did some investigation, Soraya, Ralph and I did some investigation last year, and we changed the process of assigning the students. Like as you said, we need to make sure that the student get the chance to get caught up, getting more time of instruction. But again, we need to make sure that we also protect the civil rights that the student is entitled to be on the same grade level of his peers of the same age. We think about equal access. Okay? We're trying to do things with a noble intention of doing the best for the kid, but then sometimes we are not really following the law. So to do that, we empower the principals. As soon as a student comes in and enrolls, and there's a big gap, and that's a question that the students, they ask the parents, when was the last time that the student went to school? And then that's where they feel the academic gap in years. In that particular case, then they need the schools are meeting, if they know that there's something that the student might need, maybe to be dropped one grade level, or even up to 2, no more than 2, they meet as a team, and they can get a committee meeting, and they make a decision at the school side. It's a school decision based on the principal and all the other stakeholders involved with ESOL. And normally, one of the ESOL specialists from the district attend those meetings, ensure that the school has followed the process and also to provide guidance. But it's important that we, again, continue to make sure that we provide as much as, but then that student, if it is an international center, then they become part of that rotation. All right? Yes?
We're having a wonderful conversation. I also want to make sure that we have time for that activity because that's going to frame what we do next time.
Fantastic.
So I want you to give some thought about how we can move to that so that we have, because we have.
I'm almost done, but.
Okay. I'm sorry, me.
Almost done.
Okay.
Just bear there with me.
Okay.
I'll promise I'll be fast. Okay, we also provide ELS summer camps. One for elementary, because don't forget, science is an area of concern, so we have an ELS summer camp that is for 4th graders to prepare them for the 5th grade statewide assessment on 5th grade. We do the same with middle school science, again, prepare those 6th and 7th graders that are going to then be able to take the 8th grade state assessment and pass it. And also we have an ELS summer camp for high schoolers to prepare those students with interrupted schooling with more language skills to be able to be successful in the classroom. And we do have one in each zone. We also have 15 ESOL paraprofessionals that we assign to the school. We rank our schools by tiers of support for ESOL. That might be different from the ranking of the district based on some criteria such as ESOL, number of ELLs, numbers of students with interrupted schooling, and then we come with a tier system. That's Dr. Ethan's office help us with that. And then we assign those paraprofessionals that are paid out of Title III into those schools. We have a wonderful instructional leader, Carla Hoff, who's a gem. And if anytime you would like to learn more about SCI, we can bring Carla in here and you will be fascinated with what she has to share. She's a gem. And also we have 2 compliance specialists that, again, are department of ESOL. We'll do the students, the classes, the support for the teacher, we do PD, ongoing, PLCs, all that. Also, we are in charge of compliance. We also need to watch that the schools are getting the weighted FTE. So we check that the paperwork is ready. We send those 2 wonderful ladies to the school to do mock audits and report those mock audits to the team, to the principals, and then we help them correct the findings. Last one, we have 6 ESOL specialists. This is an area of concern that we have because don't forget, I also put in here the number of ELLs throughout the years. And look, they jumped from 2012 and they have only 6 ESOL specialists. And then this year, we also have 6 ESOL specialists with 12,000 kids. So the ratio, don't forget, these students, the 2010 students, they have teachers responsible for them.
So we need to work with those teachers. The more students we have, the more teachers we need to work with and more closely. So this is an area that I would like for you as a committee to take a look at and make some recommendations. Because don't forget, the challenge is greater, the load is bigger, and the number of people in the department are the same. Okay? The activity, Dr. Wilkerson. I'm done. You have any other questions? Dr. Wilkerson, what I did for your benefit is that I took the questions that you shared with me, I put it on this matrix in here. You can do this later if you want to have them working groups or in teams or maybe on my table, and then pick 2 areas based on my presentation there. Identify what is the big area, big issue or problem that we have to explore, you as a team, as a community. What is the current status? What are we doing based on my presentation and other PowerPoint that are doing to support the needs of the DLLs? And also, what recommendations can this committee make in order to help sustain what we have and help us to improve what we need to improve on? All right, so I put in those for 2 areas of concern, and these are yours to keep, Dr. Wilkerson.
I'm gonna pass these out to everybody, right?
Sure, okay.
I'm gonna ask somebody to do that, and I'm gonna add, can I add my 2 cents?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was outstanding, and I think we all want to thank you very much.
Appreciate it, thank you.
So here's what I'm thinking, and I want you to agree or disagree. I think we have an opportunity to have a win-win situation. No one can possibly think of all of the great things to do. We can all benefit from each other's ideas and support and thinking. Evelyn has shared with us all the wonderful things that she is doing in this district as a one-woman powerhouse. This group may have some other ideas that we can bring to the table that will help this district do even better than it is already doing. So what I'd like to see us do is to take, especially that very first question about the big issue, problem, essential question that we would like to explore next time, where Evelyn can guide us and we can contribute some ideas based on our expertise so that we really do truly work as a team and a group that brings different expertise into this room. One obvious one is, how can we support the ESOL specialists in the schools and make sure that we have sufficient support for the ESOL students? Because when you see the population going up by 50% and the ESOL specialists staying the same, that's something that we could think about as a group. But then I'd like you to also think about some, even if it's just the big issues, the questions that come to mind as you listened to that presentation, that we could let Evelyn walk away with and Jeff walk away with and think about, here are some things where we think this group can make some contributions to the district. So I'll model that with some that I was jotting down while I was thinking. I saw a lot of outstanding language support programs up there. You know, there was the Rosetta Stone and all the other ones. That's why there are a dozen things. But what was occurring to me is, what if any whole family support systems are out there? And the thing that I was thinking about from my perspective and things that I've seen is a place called Grace Place in Collier County. Anybody know about Grace Place?
Yes,
Okay.
is that Tim Ferguson?
Yes, Tim Ferguson. So are there things like that that might be possible here? So what kinds of whole family support systems could we provide? Another one that I thought about, and you have to think of your own, cross-cultural training. Okay, Ellen came up here and she started speaking to you in Spanish. Okay, some speak Spanish, some are Spanish natives, but suppose she'd been talking to you in Vietnamese. Okay, so how do we help native American children understand where these children are coming from, what their cultures are, what they're thinking, what it's like to be here. What kind of cross-cultural training do we do? How do we help them to understand what it feels like, what they're bringing into the system if they've been in a country where there's no schools? So that cross-cultural training, that could be an essential question that we could look at. I'm not gonna go through my whole list because that'll stifle your creativity. But come up with some big ideas that you think we could talk about within this group where you can make a contribution to this district that will help the district. Okay, so think about that alone, together, whatever floats your boat. Write them down on this piece of paper. And then we'll give those to Evelyn tonight. And then if it is your pleasure, we will continue with this in January when we resume. And try and make a contribution to the district.
I would like to be able to share the complete list with everybody in January and say, here's what your suggestions, and then our team get together and do an analysis of that, and see what.
The complete list, but start one or two of them also. Okay, Larry?
Just so you know, when we're making the recommendations, are the middle and high schools still alternate, are they alternate blocks, or are they now 7 period, 6 period, or is everybody all 8 period alternate blocks?
So the high schools are all on the 84-minute block period, A and B. Middle schools have, for this year, have varying different schedules.
Are there any,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That might be.
are there any business partnerships in the high school? Because a lot of these wonderful kids have a great deal of ambition to work. And are there businesses that are bilingual that could assist them and give them a desire?
Literacy council, right?
Do you have that?
Literacy council.
And also, the Guatemalan Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
They go to the schools and they have had, conversation with the kids from Guatemala. And they're inspirational and how important school, so they have.
Do they bring them on board in their industry?
So in Guatemala, for example, the Guatemalan Chamber, they take students that are working with them and they do pair them up with
That I think is excellent.
business partners where they come from that same background.
Yes, and also they also set goals, and if they set goals and they achieve their goals, they took, this past summer, they took 10 kids who achieved their goals to the Bush Garden as a reward. With all expenses paid.
That really works, I've seen that.
It's a great partnership, and now we're establishing the partnership with enhancing the partnership that we have with the Haitian community, and like Dr. Mr. Bond said, for that Beatrice, who's the person that leads the association. I'm trying to get again into a conversation with, last year we did have a conversation about it, and we developed a plan for support so that you can come with some volunteers to the schools and provide support and tutoring to the Haitian Creole kids. Also, we also use them when we're keeping an eye on the other schools that have the magic number of 15 or more ELA that are to speak Haitian Creole. They by law, they're supposed to have a use of professional. So we're keeping an eye on them. Luckily, my daughter is the one who is in recruitment, so we work together. We meet every month, my daughter and I, make sure that we look at those numbers and make sure that all the schools are hired. And the last one was G. Hips. They just hired a Haitian Creole speaking parent because we said, you need to have somebody because we have the number. And then that's another way that we seek assistance from the association so they can spread out the word that we are in need of Haitian speaking for staff so they can apply for the openings that we have.
Okay, I'm going to ask just give me 1 second, Larry. It's critically important that we get some of these issues down on paper. So let's take 5 minutes and then we can extend the meeting if we want to for more conversation. But I'd like everybody to try and come up with an idea, an issue, a problem, an essential question that we'd like to toss into the works for our group to look at for our next round of conversations. I don't want us to leave tonight without having a list of things that we can work on next time. So let's do that. I mean, we can extend the meeting if we want to, but I'm gonna be the stern taskmaster. Erica said, that's the challenge you face.
This should be a no-brainer.
Or staff.
Yes, it's
12 is not enough. So, yeah, I was thinking about
It is a great increase in the population, so you've got to have more staff.
I mean, I don't need anything more than this, but I was at one.
When it's the current status. I would love to see. There are kids learning. That are American. And there are kids who are not American.
You know, the problem is.
Why don't we do this? I don't know, that's
You kind of probably, that would be like. That I think is another.
And try and stay late again tonight if you can.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll, text.
Okay, all right, you've got it all filled out, you're terrific, thank you.
Yeah. I think what is another issue is even though I'm CSAL endorsed, I have to figure out these online support programs by myself. I have to, like I log in and I figure it out on my own.
Yes.
Because there's no way that it has achievement gaps and academic gaps and hasn't been in school. It's been a computer and just start doing it, you know.
Especially if they never touch it before.
Okay, so
You
we
know.
can continue writing, but since we're on this public official schedule, is there anything for the good of the order?
overwhelming.
Okay, so let's do this, we're gonna adjourn the meeting, but you can stay at your tables and continue to work, how does that sound?
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
wanna write your name so I can.
I make a
question.
Okay, second?
Do you work with Dr. Nichols?
I'll second.
Yes,
I was in his class, and oh my gosh. He said, you're talking about Rita, and he was popping up, like, oh yeah? Yeah, he's awesome.
So I can tell you who you are, what's your name?
Christina.